welcome back to Lex Reads. So in today's video, we're actually going to be talking about Black British authors. So if I'm being honest with you guys, I've only read a handful of Black British authors. I tend to gravitate towards African American or African authors, but I have noticed a lot of the authors that I have read that are based in the UK, they are of African descent. I did want to showcase some authors that I have read, and then I have some that I want to read. So yeah, let's just get started. So I'm going to start with books that I have read. So the first book is Caleb Alzuman Nelson. This is Open Water. This was his debut novel, and this is basically it's a young love story. It kind of gives me that vibe. I cannot think of that movie. I'll put it up on the screen. I know it was on Netflix. I've read this book. It kind of has a little bit of a cliffhanger ending, but you still are satisfied. You have a young man that is a photographer, and you have a young woman that is a dancer. They both got scholarships to pursue their arts, and they're just a young couple that's dealing with, intimacy. They're dealing with their personal and professional lives. And yeah, you basically just see how it goes. I actually really did enjoy this for a debut novel. Now, if I'm being honest, I know his second novel came out a couple of months ago. This was good, but it wasn't like, oh, I gotta go out and get all of his, novels. But overall, I would say this actually is a really good love story. Next is All the Lonely People by Mike Gale. Now, you guys know how much I love this book. I did a reading vlog on this, and oh my goodness, I just was... Oh, what? This story with Hubert, you have an older man that basically lies to his daughter about his fictional life with friends and everything like that, but he is very lonely. But there was a twist with this book that I was outdone. And if you have read it, you know what I'm talking about. This will keep you on your toes. Also, I love his depiction of an interracial couple in the 1960s, I believe. He really does get in the mindset of, the racial, aspect of being an interracial couple, during that time, during the Jim Crow, time. And this book was just everything. It honestly was. Next is, oh Lord, Queenie by Candace Carty-Williams. Now, this book, you either love it or you hate it. I liked it. This is a book that you won't forget some things that went on in Queenie's life. Now, I remember when this came out, they were comparing it to like a Black Bridget Jones diary, and that's not true, because Bridget didn't have any trauma. If you have watched the Bridget Jones Diaries like series or read the books, she's like quirky and awkward, you know what I mean? And there's no really trauma in this. This book is dealing with trauma. You have a young Black girl that's in her 20s that works in the publishing industry, not making a lot of money. She is Jamaican, but she has recently broke up with her white boyfriend, and she cannot get over him. I mean, she so sprung, it'll make no sense. She think, breathe, talk about him. And in order to kind of get him out of her mind or try to get rid of him, she goes and sleeps with random men. And then every time she sleeps with them, she gets tested. And I mean, some of this stuff, it was just like, girl, yeah, like I said, this book, you either love it or you hate it. Also, too, trigger warnings. If you can't read sexual trauma, I wouldn't get into this book. This is a trigger warning book. You have to have some tough skin, because like I said, some of those sexual scenes, they weren't normal at all. But yeah, I like this book. It's a one and done. I don't need to read it. And then this cover is just fantastic. Like, look at this cover with the braids. Oh my goodness, I love this cover. But yeah, girl, this was much. Next is Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. Now, I actually listened to this book and read it, in conjunction with each other, and it was fantastic. This is basically, it reads kind of like short stories. And also, too, by reading this book, I understood pronouns. Also, too, I understood non-binary. I did not know a lot of information about that, or even the usage of it. And this really educated me when it came to that. This is a book, it's so much womanhood. Like I said, it also reads in short stories. I would say the person that got me, Carol was very sad. Her story was sad, and Dominique. Because with Dominique, you deal with domestic violence, but from a woman. And I have never read anything like that. And I tend to, which is very odd, y'all, but I kind of like those battered stories. Like, I kind of like those stories about like battered women, even when it comes to like movies or books. Something is very wrong with me. But this one was, it was much, okay? Because her significant other, Lord, but once you read it, you understand why she is the way she is. And what was the other? It was another character where, oh, I don't want to give it away, but girl, it deals with a mother, a daughter, and a husband. And I was outdone. Okay, this book will shock you. This was well deserved for the Booker Prize, even though, I mean, Why in the World was there 2 winners? It should have been 1 winner. No shade to Margaret Atwood, but I mean, come on now. But anyway, she is a Booker Prize winner, okay? And like I said, I would really recommend you guys read this on audio. It was fantastic. Okay, so next we're going to go to books that I have not read that I want to read. So the first is Mary Prince, The History of Mary Prince. This was published in 1831, and it says, was the first narrative of a Black woman to be published in Britain. And she talks about the brutality of being enslaved and her slave master and everything like that. So I actually really do like slave narratives a lot. The last slave narrative I read was Elizabeth Kingsley, and she was the confidant and seamstress of Mary Todd Lincoln, and I really did enjoy that. So I know I am going to enjoy this. Next is, I think this is a new release. It's In the Palace of Flowers by Victoria Prince Will. Now I think this actually was sent to me by the publishers. This was, yeah, 2021. And I believe this also is a slave narrative, but it's dealing with the Persian royal court in the end of the 19th century. Yeah. And I love the cover. It's so pretty. Next is Samuel Savan, A Brighter Sun. Now, he actually was born in Trinidad. He's, you know, from Trinidad, but he classifies himself as a British author, you know, UK author. This is basically about an arranged marriage. I am excited to read this. Next, oh girl, y'all. She was on the list, the top list. When you put Black UK authors, this author is going to come up next. And I'm going to tell you why I said, oh Lord. First, it's Zadie Smith. Now, I have almost all of Zadie Smith's books. I'm looking at it right now. And this was on my TBR for this year. It actually was on my TBR for September, and I DNF'd it because I could not get into this. Now, I know this is a, not retelling, but inspired by, what's his name? M. Foster, Howard Zinn. Girl, and I tried to listen to it in conjunction with reading this, and it just was a bore. I think I might read of hers. NW started with that. This, I believe, was her debut novel. But like I was saying, when you research UK Black authors, she is going to be on the list. And the reason why I actually got into Zadie Smith was because of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I was watching one of their interviews when Chimamanda was promoting Americana, and their conversation was so good. And I'm like, I just liked Zadie's vibe, okay? And I'm like, you know what? Let me get her books. And for some reason, every time I would go in a bookstore and see her books, I would always get them and haven't read them. And like I said, I tried to read this one, and it was a no ma'am. So I am going to give, like I said, NW a try. And if I can't get into it, I can't get into it. But she is like #1 for UK Black authors. Next is Mame by Jessica George. Now this actually came out last year or this year? No, this came out this year. I know just the gist of this story. I think it's like a young Black woman that works in publishing. She's taking care of her father who has Parkinson's, and she wants to experience like first kiss, first moving out, first, you know, just first of everything. And I've heard people say that the story doesn't really have just a major plot. You're just seeing a young Black woman navigate in the world. And I mean, I can get down with that. It doesn't have to just have like a big plot or like, you know, a conflict. I heard people say that nothing really happens in this book. Again, I really want to read it because this is something up my alley, and I was watching some interviews of the author talk about the book, and she seems like real dope. In the conversation that I was watching, it was really insightful. It was talking about Black women in the workforce, you know, being like the only Black person, and how you represent, you know, all Black people and just the woes of it. And it was really interesting. So, and I know the main character kind of has that you know, going on. So yeah. And then lastly, I want to read Ghana Must Go by, oh, how do you say her name? Tayasi Salesi. I think I butchered that. Now, I wanted to read this, and I wanted to read this author in particular because there was a documentary about Toni Morrison, and I know she is a lover of Toni Morrison. And, you know, she was talking about her books and everything like that. Now, I saw some reviews on Goodreads and also just some reviews on YouTube where they were saying she kind of tries to emulate Toni's writing, and you can't emulate Toni's writing. The only person that can write like Toni is Toni. Also, Toni is very hard to get into. Her writing is extremely complicated. So I'm like, oh, I do want to read it, but when I was seeing some people reviews, you know, saying that she's kind of like trying to be like a Toni Morrison, it was kind of like, girl, come on, please. I think this family moves from Ghana to the US, I believe. I haven't really read the synopsis of it because I'm like, I just want to kind of dive into it and see if I'm going to like it or not. So yeah, and I do know this was the author's debut novel, and I don't think she's written another novel. I think this is her only novel, and this came out a couple years ago. It came out in 2013, so yeah, it's been a while, but yeah. So yeah, guys, that's it when it comes to UK authors. Again, I want to read more like Black UK authors because, like I said, I'm always reading, you know, African or American literature, and from the ones I have read, I really did enjoy them. I honestly can say I did. And if you guys have any recommendations of Black British authors, please tell me, because again, I'm always looking for more. So yeah, guys, that's all I have for you, and I'll be back with more Black books. Bye.